Do you know about a Trinidadian-born Black woman who took on racism, capitalism, and imperialism all at once? And guess what? The US deported her for it. Let's talk about her. Meet Claudia Jones. She was a writer, activist, and revolutionary who fought for Black liberation, workers' rights, and women's rights in a way that made the US government terrified of her. She wasn't just fighting for civil rights. She was fighting to dismantle the entire system. She was born in Trinidad in 1915, but moved to Harlem as a child. She saw early on that being Black, poor, and an immigrant meant you were at the bottom of the ladder. But instead of accepting that, she fought back. By the 1930s, she had joined the Communist Party USA. And before you roll your eyes, understand this. She was fighting for Black workers, poor people, and women who were getting stomped out by capitalism. She wrote and organized around the idea that Black women were the most exploited group in America. Not much has changed. She was talking about intersectionality before the word even existed. Claudia was loud, unapologetic, and always calling out white supremacy. She wrote a famous essay. It was called An End to the Neglect of the Problems of the Negro Woman, where she basically said, y'all claim to be about revolution, but you keep ignoring Black women. Fix that. But instead of celebrating her, the US government saw her as a threat. Now here's where things get wild. Because Claudia Jones was an immigrant, the government had an easy way to shut her down. During the Red Scare, which was the time when the US was losing its mind over communism, they arrested her for un-American activities. And by un-American, they meant fighting for Black people, workers, and women's rights. They threw her in prison for a year and then straight up deported her to the UK in 1955. Imagine fighting for justice in the country that you grew up in, only for them to tell you to get out. You would think deportation would break her, right? Wrong. When she got to the UK, she saw the same racism and exploitation happening, but this time it was happening to Black immigrants from the Caribbean. She did what she does best. She organized. She founded the West Indian Gazette, which was one of the first newspapers in Britain for Black people. And she helped create Notting Hill Carnival, one of the biggest celebrations of Caribbean culture in the world. She turned her exile into a whole new movement. Claudia Jones knew that racism, sexism, and capitalism worked together to keep us oppressed. She called it out and she fought against it, and she paid the price for it. But they couldn't erase her legacy. She was out here talking about intersectionality before it even had a name. She was demanding justice for Black women before mainstream feminism even acknowledged us. And she built movements on 2 different continents. Think about that. That's revolutionary. So we don't hear about her because the system doesn't want us knowing that Black women have always been the blueprint for radical change. But we're not going to let them erase her. Say her name, Claudia Jones.